All right. Hello, Tonya. How are you doing on this fine day today?
I am doing really well. How are you, Matthew?
Doing great. Thank you for jumping in
Yeah.
this week. So, Tanya was kind. I had actually not booked anything specific to this week. I'm like, Tanya, jump in with me. Help me out on this. It's called tax season, right? Something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
I don't do
yeah,
taxes. It's like October or something to do with that? I don't know.
yeah, well, but we've talked to I've been asking people what they are looking for from these shows as well, and a lot of people have actually said, hey, doing some of the Q&A stuff is always enjoyable as well. Angela, good to see you as well. So I thought this would be a good time to grab some questions specifically from the group, but then also you brought up a good topic, the idea regarding networking. What was that again?
Yeah, like joining trade associations. So, especially if you are targeting a market niche. So, whether you're like your firm specifically niched or if you're just like trying to do some targeted marketing. So, how can you get in front of some people in those trade associations?
So my question for everybody today is a fun one. And in the comments, you have to put down, is it niche or niche? And I don't know how you'd spell it different. So we're going to go niche is 1 and niche is 2. So
So
which
now
is
we're gonna find out who's from the US and who's from Canada when they answer this question, right?
it? So uh,
Interesting.
looks like you're seeing what I'm seeing on it all, right? So,
All right,
all right.
fine. I'll be very proper and say niche.
Niche. Well, it doesn't matter. I just like to give you a hard time. So why don't we do this? Let's jump into our presentation for the day.
Yeah.
And we shall start off with first. Would you please introduce yourself? I know you, everybody else probably does, but hey, it doesn't hurt for you to do it again because we all want to know more about you.
Absolutely. Thanks. Yeah, this is like a whole list of things about me. Something kind of cool. Recently we started, no, don't you like the way I say that? Recently we started the Construction Junction podcast and Roundtable. So those are two cool new things we have going on. Hit me up if you want to know more about that. You can always find me over in the Facebook group. Also, I want to point out, because I keep putting this on my bio slides, that I'm a chocolate lover. And I do speak at live events, and no one has yet brought me chocolate. So if you're going to be at Scaling New Heights this year and you're coming to any of my sessions, I mean, this has been on my bio slides for years, guys. Come on now.
Well, I'm going to go update mine. I'm a fine tequila lover as well, so feel free to bring me that as well. I love it. I love it.
I just needed to point that out. I have yet to receive any chocolate at any of these live events. Come on, people.
Well, we'll have to work on that for this Scaling New Heights for sure. So we're going to jump in real quickly. We've got just a couple questions from the group, but as well there, again, please, if you've got other questions that you want answered, that's what we're here for. We will spend more time on that instead of the networking conversation aspect of it, but feel free to ask them and we'll go through that. So one of the questions we had to when I put these presentations together, I try to do it at least a day or two in advance. And then everybody decides to put a whole bunch of questions on the very last day. It's like, ah. But one of them was, I run a small daycare and upgrading from self-employed to QuickBooks Online with auto billing and auto pay feature so that I can receive payments automatically. My question is how to get my clients who are the same every month to fill out the bank information from some QB portal or automated way. My accountant is asking me to give all of the clients a paper form to fill out and then send those forms back to him. There has to be an easier way.
There is.
What is it?
Well, I think you have one. I'll let you share that. But I will just say our firm, we actually have a form that we set up that we send through. You can send it through like a DocuSign or a HelloSign, right? So it gives you the text fields. So it's all automatically formatted for us. All we have to do is maybe change the dollar amount if that is even an issue. And then we just send it over to them. And then it's also official too. Like they've signed it and said, it's okay. You're authorized to pull this amount out of my bank account on this day every time. So it's coming through, like ours is through HelloSign.
Yeah, I do love doing it that way. I mean, there's cognito forms. There's a lot of things you can do of the same kind of nature. You want to make sure that it's gonna if you're doing something of that nature and it's gonna have the personalized information, it should be if it's HIPAA compliant. Usually, know you're safe is a good way to go about it. You can, of course, take a PDF, and if you happen to have Adobe PDF, you can actually usually like just right within the program convert it to a fillable form right away. And if you save that, it's still that could then be digital where you're sending it out and they type stuff in, right? I could do a whole different episode on that. But I do actually like the idea of having a digital version of it. Or the first time you have them do the payment, you have tell them you need them to fill it out online. It can then save that information for future payments to be done.
Right.
And then the other part of this, which actually wasn't touched on, but it's kind of important, is traditionally, if you're trying to do that automation, you're going to be creating an automated sales receipt.
Correct.
So sales receipt that has the payment established to it.
Not an invoice. You can't do an invoice. Yeah.
It's got to be a sales receipt because then it's taking the payment right away. But I will say, I just filled in feedback. One of my biggest pet peeves right now is if you're doing that and you need to refund something, there is no easy way to refund money through QuickBooks Online. You're going to bust out your checkbook if you've got one and try to to send it back to them. There's no just here, let me reverse it if it's already cleared.
Yeah, Donna's pointing out again, like PCI compliance is huge. So like we on that form that we send via HelloSign, we do not collect their 3-digit CVV code. We don't keep their card number and their CVV code together as part of our PCI compliance piece. And so we never keep those two together. That's one piece of that. The other thing is, she was saying like use Stripe or something, but if you're running it through QuickBooks Online, you can, like you said, the first time you send the payment, they can fill all their information in and then you're never even seeing their information, which I think that's my number one way to do it if you have the ability to.
Yeah. And so, I mean, the idea of using a Stripe or Square, there are definitely the value adds for it, but there's also additional work to do it that way. It is nice to have it when it's going through QuickBooks Online that it just links up, syncs up, handles all that stuff for you automatically. There's actually a question in the group, which I'm looking into about some new language on the invoicing going out saying, if you pay through here, we'll reconcile and do all the work for you. But that's a different thing. In other words, they're advertising again.
Caught that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's nice that it's all into one place. So it can cut down, especially as accountants for other people. Like, I don't know about you all, but my clients are not the greatest about matching up their payments to their invoices specifically.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It depends on how much administrative work is involved. Is who's going to do the work? Is the bookkeeper going to do the work? Is the client going to do the work? So there's a lot of workflow issues to work out there.
So hopefully that helped. We'll jump on to the next one, which Pamela was saying, good morning, QB group, which it feels like morning, right? Does anyone know who I can contact in the Pro Advisor group about certifications that have disappeared from my dashboard? Thank you. And I think what I thought I would do is try to kind of pull up and bring up my fake company file and all that stuff over here, right? But really what we're talking about is if I go back to my accountant, if you're talking about under your inside of this area, as soon as my thing loads here, you can go to team, and under team, you'll see certifications here. If any of yours have expired, they won't show up specifically there anymore. Or I don't know if they're talking about the other option would be like it used to be on the Pro Advisor profiles, it would show each of the years and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
That would be, I'm not exactly do you know who is the best person to connect with that? I probably should know that, but
we probably both should.
I'll find the best name.
Ted couldn't help with that.
What's that?
Ted Callahan.
Ted could, but there's gonna be somebody to get to first. So I'll follow up and actually try to get a better name and contact.
Back in the day, I would have been like, oh, I'll just contact Arij, but I don't know who's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Miranda, there's a woman named Miranda who's she's the lead of the pro advisor, but I don't know that she would be the one that would directly resolve it, but we can check into that. Ingrid, good to see you. And she actually was entering in, giving a comment on Zoom, which is, can you log into QB Merchant Services backend and process the refund from there? Then you can just manually enter the transaction in QBO.
I've done that.
Yeah, you can. So if we are not keeping, because we're trying to be PCI compliant and we're not keeping the papers that have the documentation inside there, it doesn't, like, they make it very difficult on that side.
Right. You have to for a refund. For a reversal, so let's say same day something happens and you want to reverse it the same day, you can just go in and click reverse.
Yeah.
For a refund, you have to type in information.
So to wrap myself out, basically what it was is we had a client that had discontinued services and we had an automated sales receipt that's still processed and I needed to get the money back to them. So that happened the next day, which became a wah, wah, wah. So.
And they're done that.
Yeah. And that is why automation still requires maintenance. But I like that's a good point. I'll give it a try for sure. And we're done with this here. So sorry, Pamela, I will get a better answer. We'll put it on there. So the main crux of this one here, a PPP question, basically came down to that, let's see here. Since there's no portal from the lender for forgiveness, my next action is to complete the SBA form 3508S. So basically the time for loan forgiveness submission passed. There was no portal, which is not that surprising with how many of these different companies were doing these so many different ways. So now what do they do if they're saying they're not accepting these applications?
I read this question earlier and I just said that totally sucks, right? Like,
yeah,
there's so many, I've heard horror stories about so many of these lenders that weren't properly set up to handle the large volume that they did.
Yes, some of them were having other issues. One of the things you have to look into is whether or not the loan was sold. And I know this is not a direct, answer to what they're talking about. And Carla, this happened to have been one they were talking about for a first round PPP. So we got a lot of this right at the end of May. We got just tons and tons of questions on this stuff because everybody was hitting that threshold at that point.
Right.
And the difficulty is, yes, you can go straight to the SBA, but it's still, the information has to go to the lender for the lender to submit it to the SBA, for them to sit on it for up to 60 days to make the decision whether it's going to be approved or not, and so forth.
The lender is supposed to run it through their own verification process before they hand it over to the SBA.
Most likely this was, again, it was a 3508S. So I'm guessing it's a smaller amount. So it probably didn't require a lot of supporting documentation. So going straight to the SBA, I would think is the best answer for this. If it was a larger amount, I would be questioning how they got past the forgiveness stage, like, because that should be super, super important. Yeah. And you better get on the phone with people at SBA. So are they able to use the SBA portal for the second round under 150? Depending on, so theoretically, yes, they would be able to, depending on when they got the funding. And the question is whether it's time to do it or not, based on when they got the money for the cover period, so forth. But you do want to go through whoever you receive the money from. You want to go through their process. What I'm finding, and I think everybody else has, is a lot of these like lenders are just harassing people like before it's time. You need to get this done. You need to get this done. You need to get this done.
Interesting. I haven't heard that. I've heard a lot of more of this side of a horror story where they're not able to process them on time. Mm-hmm. I will just say that we had 2 local lenders here in Arizona that helped all of our clients. Both of those local lenders helped every single one of our clients with PPP loans specifically for first round. A few of them got second round, and those 2 local lenders were rock star lenders, and they've been fantastic to work with on both ends. So
and they probably got a lot of new business. And this actually will, in a second, here tie back into the next part of the conversation about networking and groups and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yes, it
So,
will.
Francis was saying, so yes, this was a small amount, less than 70K. Now the key is 50K and below, but still good to know. Straightforward process on direct forgiveness portal. Once submitted, SBA contacts lender and requests and approval from them so SBA can process. Thank you for that update onto it.
Interesting. Yeah.
I don't know about everybody else, but I am voting to have the letter P removed from the alphabet. I don't
Also,
think
E, I, D, and L. Can we do all of those?
no, I need some of
Oh.
the, I need at least one of those in my name.
Oh.
So
Okay, sorry.
know.
More than one, I think.
How do you spell my name?
Oh, wait, SPOT. No, we can get rid of O.
E-R-A-T. Oh, no. Okay. So now one of the last ones here is basically desktop versus online environment, right? In desktop, when you've got cash basis balance sheet, your balances in your AR and your AP, either item coded to the balance sheet account or credits have been applied. The question really on this is for the online, when you have cash basis, what are the items or reasons that make unapplied cash payment income or unapplied bill payment expense populate?
Oh, I'm explaining this to clients regularly.
Go for it. You got first dibs on it.
It's when it's dates. It's all about dates. So when you have, let's say, entered a vendor bill and you dated 8/1, but you actually sent the payment off to your vendor on 7/31, maybe that hit your bank feed on 7/31. So you just go ahead and apply the payment to that, but you entered the vendor bill with a date of 8/1, that's going to pop it into unapplied cash. What is it? Whatever that is, unapplied bill payment.
Yep, exactly.
It's basically, it's doing proper accounting for you on the back end, because in an accrual based world, obviously that would never happen, but it's just saying like you paid some money out before you technically showed that amount was due. And the exact same thing will happen on the AR side. If you receive a payment dated before you enter the date of the invoice, it's going to show up on that income line.
You know that I was trying to see if I had an example to show inside the books as well, but you nailed it. So now here's a little bit of a question to it though. Let's say you're bringing in a deposit on an invoice. How is that different? Why is that different?
That's basically unearned revenue.
Correct.
Yeah. So, and that would be treated a little bit differently at that point too. So, yeah, just applying a payment up front. And some people do, right? Some people, because especially when you're working in the cash basis world and you're just like, oh, well, my customer sent me some money, so I'm just going to go ahead and apply it, make sure it's showing up on their account, right?
Yeah.
But technically, from an accounting standpoint, obviously they want to make sure that it's showing up properly as unearned revenue, not just sort of floating out there nebulously. And that's why QuickBooks is sort of creating that account, right? They're like, you really didn't earn this.
Yes. So every time I bring people onto these shows, I ask everybody, did you turn off your bleeps, blurps, and chirps before you get on? And I forgot to turn mine off, apparently. So sorry about that. Yeah, one of the things we would always do is...
I'm sorry, that was good.
I had to, again, I'm always down to wrap myself out on stuff. So with certain clients, if we were waiting for them to create invoices, we would go in and we would receive payment against a customer name, which would initially show up as a negative balance, right? Because there's no invoice. So this definitely became an issue like that, where when the invoice would go in, we'd have to take a look and basically make sure the dating on the invoice is correct. Yeah. Always within the same period of time, of course, right? We're not changing the prior periods, that kind of stuff.
Right.
But squeeze it before, that'll make it go away, gets it nice and clean, and everybody's happy.
Here's one for you that was happening that we weren't even really paying attention to, because we were dealing with a client who we always ran their reports on an accrual basis. They were percentage of completion clients. We were never even looking in QuickBooks Online at their cash basis reports. But what they were doing, they had an outside app that was pushing information in. So sometimes they would receive payments, but work was still being completed on like maybe a week-long service job. So they would receive, again, like kind of like an upfront deposit from that customer, and they would just process it through as a payment that would automatically flow into QuickBooks, but then they wouldn't close out that invoice in that outside app for like a week. And so that was building up. And the problem that we found with that, so just like a little tip to kind of watch out for, because of how they were doing that, sometimes things were not being tracked back properly. And we ended up with a small amount. At the end of the year, it was like $4,000 in undeposited funds that hadn't been properly accounted for.
Yeah, that's a great point. That really becomes a pain in the rear trying to match that stuff up. So,
and the reason we didn't really catch it on the undeposited funds is because this is a very large customer. They're receiving tons of money. So we weren't really paying attention to that small amount sitting out there in undeposited funds. We just figured it was rolling over every month. And so we had to go back and fix it all at the end of the year.
So Ingrid also added in regards to this, for clients that have prepayments that linger over the tax year end, you can resolve the balance of unapplied cash payments by creating an invoice for 12/31 using an item that points to the balance sheet and a reversing credit memo for January 1st of the following year. The original payment needs to be applied to the 12/31 invoice, not to the future dated invoice for actual services.
Yep.
Spaceballs. So great, actually great information there. Good insight. So, so hopefully that helped on that part of it. Now, the other thing I had added on here is more of just to kind of let people know. Some of you may have seen this video. If you've had problems with bank fee rules and the auto ads, put in the comments. Let us know. Yes, please give thumbs up, hearts, whatever, all that kind of stuff, because it happens all the time, right? If they drive you nuts, I came up with a video just a little bit back that, because I'm a nerd, I dissected these rules to try to figure out how can you get rid of these things super quick. And in the video, it shows you that if you basically download the rules, you can do a search for find and replace this section at the end. And if you remove this and basically replace it with nothing, it will take off the auto ad. You re-upload the rules, and now all of your auto ads are gone off of your rules. So sometimes you get into a company file and you have a situation like this where they've got 20, 30 of these, and you don't want to sit there and click one at a time. The video will kind of show you how to deal with that. It's on my profile and on my YouTube channel, of course. So just thought I would share that.
Very cool tip.
Yes, I'm a nerd.
I know.
If we don't have other questions specific from the group, the next thing we wanted to kind of talk about is, networking through trade associations. So, we just got one question in real quick here. Do you have a template to add rules? How to answer that? If you can add a little more context, as in, like if you're trying to create your own, I do have this crazy sheet, which I don't easily share because it's really hard to explain how to use it with, So Mordecai with Excel formulas, I do actually, but you'll have to connect with me offline on it. I reverse engineer this stuff to where I can create 20 to 100 rules all at once, just by putting vendor name in some details, through some concatenate and everything else. I like a person that knows their Excel. This is nice.
So earlier comment about being a nerd, we're gonna revise that to super nerd. So.
Back on track. So back to you again. We're talking about networking and growing your business. How many, again, in the comments, how many people are currently taking on new clients, looking for new clients? If you are, let us know. I'd love to see where people are at, kind of. Always looking. And it's kind of an obvious one, right? But so how do you do it? And
lots of ways, right?
Yeah. With what you do, construction, this totally makes sense. So
when a couple of years ago, we sort of started the business off. We were always sort of niched in construction. We've gotten more and more focused on that niche as time has gone on. We used to take some other folks, and now we just don't. We don't take anybody besides construction. But that said, about 2 years ago, we were like, we probably should start joining some associations. It's the old marketing adage, go where your customers are, right? And so where are they? And so for us, we found trade associations was a really good place. And we have, it's like every other marketing channel. This is the hardest part, is how do you calculate ROI?
Yes.
Because, and this one I feel like is even harder than some others because, whenever a lead comes in, our marketing person that sets up all of our marketing is constantly hounding our team, like, ask where
How
the
did you
lead
hear
came
about us?
from, ask where they heard about us. It's
Got
bad
it.
because our team is still not good at that. We need to get better. But even like the how did you hear about us? It's interesting because with this particular one, I find that more people go like, oh, I don't know, I've just heard. So your mom's cracking me up. Yes, thank you. Niche. Oh.
So yes, you have to go a step further is what you were going to basically say, right? So
You have
people,
to, yes. Sorry, go
oh,
ahead.
I found you online. Oh, great. That's wonderful. Do you remember what search term you used, or was that on Yelp, or do you remember where?
Right.
Because you got it, like time, energy, money all goes to getting this to happen.
Right, exactly. And with the networking through the trade association, so here's an interesting part. So sometimes we're getting straight referrals. A lot of times we're getting straight referrals from other members who are like insurance agents, lawyers. They're called associate members in the trade groups that we belong to, right? But they're people who are not necessarily of that trade, but they're associates who serve the trade.
Okay.
So that's one piece of this, is you're not just thinking of it in terms of like, okay, now I have access to all the members of this trade association who are, in our case, subcontractors or roofers, or you go and join a trade association for bankers or e-commerce sellers or whatever the case may be. You're not just gaining access to be in front of them, which is a really important piece of it because people like to do business with people that they know.
Yeah, buy more from a friend.
Right, exactly. But you're also then gaining access to these other large networks that those other associate members have.
The spider
And
effect.
right, it's a huge referral source for you. So I think, again, it's harder because sometimes people are like, I don't know, somebody brought up your name and somebody else brought up your name. So it's harder for us to track that kind of stuff. I mean, it's super easy if you're like, oh, well, we belong to this association and so did you. We looked you up in the member directory, right? But go ahead.
Well, I want to read what Donna had said, but I also want to ask everybody in the comments how, like, I'd love to know, how are you guys finding your different leads? What are your different sources? I mean, is it a BNI? Is it Chamber of Commerce? Is it trade associations, online, not finding any smoke signals, carrier pigeons, whatever you'd like?
Donna made a really, really, really good point, which I think is one of the
Go for it.
most important points about belonging to a trade association.
Read it.
Become a resource. Donna said, I went there and I became a resource, right? So again, it's not direct selling. It's, hey, I heard that you're having trouble with the PPP. So back to our conversation earlier and how this ties directly in.
Yeah.
Hey, client, I heard you're having trouble with PPP. I know this great banker because he belongs to the trade association that I belong to. And I am not kidding you, Matthew. Both of those bankers, because we different people had different needs, but two different banker friends of ours, both who were trade association networking friends, grabbed a hold of all of our customers. Every single one of our customers had fantastic service. And some of our clients have gone over to those banks because of the service that they were able to receive. And see, I have one of the gentlemen that sits on the board with me of one of the associations that I'm on right now. He's the vice president of one of those banks. He told me that when they were processing PPP loans, they were working 24/7. They brought in crews to process
Wow.
PPPs 24/7. So they did it right. They knew what they were doing. And I
It,
wouldn't have known them except for through the trade association.
there used to be a day that banks had this thing called customer service, where you got to know the teller or the branch manager, right? And you would have an actual relationship with them. So it's nice to hear that some of that still exists at times. Definitely is.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I think that's part of what they're trying to build through that association too. Some of the, and again, back to like that being the resource for them.
Yeah.
Like one of the things that we're currently doing is assisting that particular trade organization to build out an educational program.
Oh,
And
nice. Okay.
so as being a part of that, some of the educational pieces that they're basically trying to put it together a certification program.
Mhm.
So some of the educational pieces that are going to be tied to this like stamp of approval that this person knows what they're doing in the world of subcontracting in this case, that's going to have the profit constructor's name on it.
Well, so I feel like people that are here, especially now or listening to this, if they're involved with Cubic Community Live, they already subscribe to this concept that if we openly share our knowledge, if we're willing to help each other, then it comes back, right? So together we all succeed. So it definitely makes good sense as a good way to do it. There's one of the things I think it's really important to know, like if you're going to commit to an association, we've done BNI for quite some time. You do need to commit for a certain amount of time. Like you can't jump into it and think within the first month or 2 months, all of a sudden everyone's gonna be beating down your door. I always say you need to commit a full year of time because
at least
you're building those relationships just like anything else before you're going to get those referrals, recommendations, and such. For
sure. And back to like Donna's comment about becoming a resource for them. Part of that whole, like I said earlier, people like to do business with people they know. They want to do business with someone that's already given them some good information they've been able to rely on, right? And then, there's that whole thing. We just had a conversation at a meeting I was at recently at a trade association where someone was commenting on people within those types of organizations are savvy, right? That's one of the reasons why they're in that organization also. And everyone knows when that salesperson busts down the door and runs around and tries to get everybody's card and name and is just there to make sales rather than being the person that comes in that's there to help and support the organization and the community. And from that, the sales will come. It's two totally different styles. And everybody in those groups is typically recognizes right away what's going on when that salesperson busts down the door.
Dawn added on another great point here. Another thing is that you can have more than one ideal client and pick specific groups to go to for that ideal client. I have 4 different ones. As an example, I mean, there's a lot of different ways. So for my company, I'm working to finally niche down, if you will, towards marketing agencies.
It's a niche.
Yeah, I know, but don't tell my mom. It's for marketing agencies. Like when I first started the business, I always say you either have too much time or too much money. And I obviously had too much time. So I started to dive in and learn about websites and SEO and doing videos and YouTube and all these things. And I dig it. I love it. So having conversations with those type of people, it's just always fun. And I get to learn more about these things. So the goal is you need to look at where your target audience is going to be. That's part of the reason why, like I've been doing more at nighttime, diving into using Clubhouse, because Clubhouse is kind of a joke, but I always say it's a cesspool filled with marketing people. So why not be in the middle of it as the accountant trying to help give some guidance and insights with all these marketing people around?
Yeah.
So
I think that's the thing. Like Donna's point earlier was find out where your target market is hanging out.
Yeah.
Right. In your case, you're looking at Clubhouse as the place that they're hanging out. And that's really all that it boils down to. Like maybe there are places that e-commerce people hang out that's not technically a trade association.
That's very true.
But go find where they hang out.
Which just reminds me, actually, one of the things I was going to share with people today is, do we have anybody that's on right now that specifically deals with eBay for their clients? If you do, I'd love to know. There's an app that's looking for beta testers, and they are offering up a 1-year subscription, basically, to help become a beta tester, to protected data, that kind of stuff. But I'll follow up with that in just a couple of minutes. But you reminded me. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah.
So Donna said the 4 different ideal clients essentially run the same with the systems and processes. That's a super important one that I developed for my business. So I do the same thing over and over, but they think it's custom for them.
So yesterday, this is a sneak peek for a podcast I recorded yesterday. It's not going to release for 8 days. But I had Andrew Lassise from Rush Tech on for our podcast recording yesterday. And he said that in their niche for their IT services for their clients, they work specifically for accountants. They have built a specific process for accountants where it's all built out to include all of the IRS regulations, the AICPA like everything. You'll be completely in compliance if you're working with them from an IT standpoint. And we chose to do that, even though we're not a CPA firm. It just makes so much sense, right? To be in compliance with all those rules and regulations. It makes a lot of sense. Well, he was telling us yesterday that some of his clients aren't in the accountant space because they'll get client referrals. So their accountant clients will refer their carpentry clients. And when they get those clients, they still apply the same principles and level of regulation and compliance across the board. Yeah. So they don't have to change their systems. They've got a fantastic scalable system and model that works for them. And now then those clients are getting a really hyper level of IT services that they don't necessarily need for their industry. Yeah. But it's a good level of service for them. And there's no difference in price. They're not gouging anyone, but
it's brilliant.
They're able to serve it.
The other really important one I strongly suggest, and I have to say thank you to so many people, just getting involved in your industry.
Yeah.
Right? I probably 50% of my business leads come from fellow accountants and bookkeepers.
Yes.
And it's just by getting involved in the industry, collaborating, communicating, doing that kind of stuff. So hopefully this gave some people some different ideas of ways to
yeah. And I'm going to throw one other thing out there about what you just said that I think is super interesting is, lean in. So like, if you do, I will do this. Like if I have someone that I know has expertise with something that maybe one of our construction clients is touching on. So for instance, one of our guys wants to start doing inventory. Inventory is not something that we typically handle in the construction space, but it's specific to him. I understand why he's trying to do it. But, lean in then to your other accountant partners that have that expertise. This is one of the most amazing communities I've ever been a part of, is the accountant community that we've found at places like QB Community Live and the Roundtable, all kinds of awesome places.
It's taking me a bit of time because I do this stuff myself, but I'm working to actually add profiles onto the QB Community Live website where people would be able to go in, list their business, their preferred niche, and the clients that they'd be looking for, basically. Just again, is that value add, because I think if we had a good resource, a good list like that people could go and be like, oh, I need somebody that can help with this, and they know where to go to. It's just a great value add. So you guys can keep bugging me on it, hold me accountable for it, but I am working on that slowly but surely.
So best takeaway from today, we're now going to just start saying niche every time.
Yep.
Or niche.
Or we should go to a thesaurus and try to find a different word.
Yes. So we no longer have this argument.
Yes. Well, as we get close to the conclusion here, being respectful of everybody's time, I'm going to switch back over to our slideshow here for a quick moment. And let's see here. So as I was just talking about, I was in a group earlier, and bookkeep.com. Now, I have full disclosure, I cannot speak to, I have not used this application. I'm not fully familiar with it from that side, so I don't wish to mislead there. But while talking with them in a group of different app companies, they're looking for beta testers specifically that are using eBay. And they are willing to offer a 1-year subscription. If you reach out and connect to them, you can talk to them about the specific details, but I want to at least try to bring this resource to the group in case it could be beneficial to anybody here. Oh, Donna's already doing it. So Donna, I hope you got your free year. If not, you should hit him up on that. Tell him I said so. Tonya, you don't have to go yet, but this is your contact information. What's your preferred way of communication, connection, and all that? And tell us, actually, also real quickly, would you tell us about Construction Junction, the Roundtable as well? I know you've got the podcast, but you have a Roundtable. Can you share with everybody what that's about?
I will. I'll just say also, and I think you might have it queued up to go, our most recent podcast is all about joining trade associations. So definitely check that out. The Roundtable. So Construction Junction Roundtable, we meet twice a month. And it's just specifically for accountants who are either already serving in the construction space and you need a little bit of a deeper dive for questions that aren't necessarily always answered well in the generic groups, the general groups. And also we have a lot of construction specific apps that will come and you can find out more, do a deeper dive in those apps than you would ever get in a demo, ask them the hard questions. So things like Level Set, Notify, SimPro, if you're interested in things like that, they're coming in and speaking with us and giving us more access from the back end.
What's neat about it is they're not just coming in to do a demo, they're coming in to answer questions, because traditionally it's already a situation where we've probably poked around and put our head into a certain app and we want to know, hey, we found this problem, or we've seen this, or we'd like to see that. And you're getting that direct connection, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. And again, examples of some of the topics like we've talked about is one of the funnest ones, workers' comp. When you're dealing with construction companies and how you have to deal with that, different class codes, and there's just so many aspects.
Certified payroll, prevailing wage. How can you find ways to process those reports in a more automated manner?
Billing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm really interested. We're going to be trying to figure out a little bit more detail pretty quick here about the recently announced improved relationship between Notify and QuickBooks Online Advanced. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping that means that they're getting closer to custom fields. I said it. So
said it out loud.
They're talking about buying a $10 billion company, MailChimp. Just get me my custom fields at work. It won't even cost you that much. Can I have that first, please? Anyways. So, calm down.
Did you want me to send that to someone and into it?
No, I'm hoping they'll see it. Okay. Tell me how you really feel. So email, phone number, all that stuff. As always, this presentation will be available on the QB Community Live website. Everything usually goes up like Saturday, Sunday. By the time we get it loaded, it's got contact information for everybody, the slide deck, and the video. So we do have coming up pretty quick here. I've got some pretty cool stuff coming up here. So next week, I've got a special guest, Paul. Paul is a member of QB Community Live that I ended up connecting with him. I think it's been over about a year now. And he was just getting started with building up his own. He's a CPA, but just building up his own firm. And we're able to kind of do some mentorship sessions, whatever, hanging out, talking, everything else. Yep. And he wants to share his perspective of it about earning your tribe. And I think it will be a great conversation to talk. He really wants to basically show his thanks and appreciation to the group and what it's done for him and how he's become successful with it. So
that's probably what we're talking about, joining trade associations. I find my tribe there too, right? I've always been in the construction space. Yeah. So I really enjoy hanging out with those guys. But at the same time, I can't tell you how nice it is to have conversations with accountant nerds like me, right? And just be like, oh yeah, so this is why this is happening on the profit and loss statement when you're not posting the AR and the AP bills in the right order, right? It's nice to have those conversations too.
The reason I know nobody's ever listening into my phone calls is because of how exciting they are, right?
Right. I know. I used to have someone on my team, and when I first started training with her, we'd be on the phone all day. We weren't really doing it through Zoom, which we tend to do more these days. Yeah. We'd be like, what do you think of that conversation, NSA?
Oh, yeah.
That was really exciting.
Now they have video to back it all up. So
yeah, there you go.
After that, I don't have the slides up there at the moment, but I have some exciting stuff that's coming up that everybody will want to be a part of. I've been working with Woodard Group and Scaling New Heights to start bringing in each week a different presenter and I believe a different vendor that will be at Scaling New Heights to kind of talk about what their session is going to be. But I'm working really hard on the back end. I'm working to get a special something set up for people to give away. And I can only tease it like that at the moment. So stay tuned and it's pretty cool. So
now I'm on pins and needles. Way to go.
Then I quickly mentioned Clubhouse. I just like to let people know I'm in the process of getting a club set up called Bootstrap Your Business. It's I am going to be partnering up with a great person named Kate Keys. She is an interior designer who has basically built her own business up second time around, 155,000 Instagram followers, does stuff as influencer wise with Home Depot, with Orange County Goodwill, and so many others. And she hustled and bootstrapped and built her business with just everything, with what she had. She didn't have a whole bunch of money. She just made it happen. And I'm just always impressed with that because, we all have to do the same thing. So we find ways to give back and just share some knowledge and wisdom with others.
Love it.
And then there's my fancy contact information, which you guys can get, of course, later on. So
awesome.
At this time, any last words, anything else you'd like to say or add?
This was fun. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. Thank you for coming on. And to everybody else, as always, here's wishing you all a very successful week. Bye, everybody.